Very, very strange. Buffett bought this at all. He rarely trades, so believe he has short-term concerns, which is worrying, honestly. I'm here to see who buys Buffett's bags. You realize if China invades Taiwan, this goes to zero, right? Buffett let his hands. So Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, the billionaire, is crashing my TSM position, and we're going to be talking about Berkshire Hathaway's recent filing to see the stocks he's been buying, the stocks he's been selling, and the insanity because, God, somebody better ask him some questions at that annual shareholder meeting, because it seems like they're trading in and out of a lot of things recently. But we'll just take a broad view here, and then obviously offer my personal opinion because I'm a huge shareholder at this point. Well, from my perspective, I'm a big shareholder in TSM, so consider hitting that like button. Let's get into the article first and foremost before we look at the recent filings. But Berkshire Hathaway slashed its stake in Taiwan Semiconductors during the fourth quarter and nearly eliminated what had been a large stake in US Bancorp, according to the filings late Tuesday. Berkshire Hathaway reduced its interest in Taiwan Semiconductors to 8.3 million shares in the fourth quarter from 60 million shares in the third quarter, a drop of 86%. The stake in US Bancorp fell to 6.7 million shares from 52.5 million shares, according to the 13 filing on Tuesday. The news of the cut in the Taiwan Semiconductor stake is depressing shares of the huge chip maker in after-hours trading. The stock is down 3.3. Now it's down like 6%, 7% or something like that. The sharp reduction in Taiwan Semiconductor stakes comes just a quarter after Berkshire built the position. We're going to talk about this, which totaled $4.2 billion at the end of the third quarter. Berkshire likely made a profit on the holding, given that Taiwan Semiconductors gained about 10% in the fourth quarter to end the year at $74, which doesn't make a lot of sense. We'll discuss that. That can't be accurate because the average buy price on Berkshire was around $75. But Berkshire missed out on the big gains in the stock because basically, obviously, all the gains came into January. The slashing of Taiwan Semiconductor stake was a surprise, since many investors assumed that Berkshire CEO Warren Buffett or his investment lieutenant Todd Combs and Ted Weschler had established a long-term holding in the semiconductor producer. Now, they still hold shares, but I think it's important to note that the average buy price again was around $75, which they built up in the third quarter of last year of 2022, so which means they had to be buying somewhere around this period at which they liquidated the shares in the fourth quarter. That is a crazy amount of trading in the second half of 2022, because we can take a look. They didn't make any real gains on it. Their average buy price somewhere around here was $75, and they got out at the top, so maybe they were lucky they made 10%, but I highly doubt that. And then obviously I was buying somewhere around here. Again, my buy price, my initial tranche, right around 75 as well, and then the big gains came in into January. But let's take a look at the Berkshire Hathaway portfolio as it sits today and what's been kind of just going on here with their trades, because there's been a lot. But I should also mention that if you guys enjoy these discussions and want to chat with me in real time, come on over to my Patreon page, link in the description below. For less than a Starbucks coffee a month, you can join my private chat group, talk with me and many 6 and 7 figures investors in real time, 24/7, 7 days a week about news like this, and get tons of other private content. I'd greatly appreciate the support. But primarily we got Apple, Bank of America, CVX, Coca-Cola, and American Express make up a whopping 75% of the entire Berkshire Hathaway publicly traded stocks, at which they did add about 0.04% of Apple, which kind of blows my mind just a little bit. If you want to see the TSM shares, we actually have to scroll all the way down here, somewhere down there it is. We can see that they reduced TSM by 86%. It's crazy because it was their 10th largest position in that third quarter of last year, and now it's just kind of been abysmal toward the bottom there. But let's talk about a few things. First and foremost, Apple here. Apple is like a huge position, almost 40% of the entire publicly traded holdings. And just taking a look at Apple stock, year to date, man, it has been on an utter tear. It is up 22.9%, which if you want to see why the market is pure fugazi, we all talked about their earnings. This was the first earnings period where they saw a reduction in sales pretty much across the board, which hasn't happened since 2015, 2016. They went from 124 roughly billion to 117 billion, with iPhone sales dropping, iMac or the MacBooks dropping off. iPads, the only thing seeing a real increase. You got wearable and home devices decreasing, and services increasing slightly. Like, this was by far one of the worst quarters Apple has ever experienced, and the stock has done nothing but go up. I mean, it just shows you the true sign of the times, right? In comparison to TSM, that just posted their monthly revenues for January was up 16.2%. You go back to 2022 and you take a look at these growth numbers. TSM is a growth beast, man. This thing, in comparison to Apple right now, this thing looks like a freaking gem when the valuation's around a 14 PE today. And this is the rising tide raises all ships. TSM up 22%, still now down to $90. It's crazy that people think the drop that's happening right now and today is purely because Buffett's just selling. This is all the people that believed in this stock because of Warren Buffett, and it just shows you the blind following concerns and just doing the Warren Buffett trade. So all of this movement here has nothing to do with Warren Buffett selling in and out of this company. It's purely just based off that article and people's perception of it. It's kind of wild just to take that into consideration. The markets are coming down a bit, so maybe that has something to do with it a bit as well, but I'm pretty confident this is all because of Warren Buffett. So taking a look at the other positions here, he did reduce Chevron, the oil giant, by 1.44%. And just taking a look at Chevron here, it did go on that wicked oil run, but this year it's down about 2%. Coca-Cola, another giant here that they haven't done anything with, is down 5%. And American Express is actually up 22.5%. And I don't know if I mentioned Bank of America here, but this one's also just generally been flat, but up 5% year to date. Outside of that, just taking a look at the biggest sellers, another one that's really interesting to me is the big reduction in Activision Blizzard by about 12.3%, lowering the position here. And just taking a look, this thing is supposed to be getting bought out by Microsoft this year, presuming that everything gets the go-ahead, from the government and just kind of getting through the hoops and hurdles. Buffett used to be a long-term kind of diamond-handed investor, picking new stocks to build up like every year. And they've been in and out of so much, from the airlines to all these stocks now, and it's just weird seeing the amount of trading that's going on. They did add to Paramount Global. Great, huge reduction in Bank of New York Mellon. And it's kind of interesting that they're lowering all the bank positions pretty much outside of Bank of America, because they did, we can find US Bank Corp in here, which again, I still think they own shares in. Yeah, it's not like they got rid of TSM or US Bank Corp, but these are massive reductions, lowered it by 91%. Taking a look, US Bank Corp year to date has actually been doing pretty good. And on the last day, Buffett's not really moving the handle on this one. So clearly nobody really cared about US Bank Corp, and TSM was the diamond in a rough that Berkshire built to this massive position in such a short period of time, only to just, dump that bag onto everyone. But again, look at the size of this company here. Taiwan Semiconductor is a $440 billion company. Buffett buying $4 billion it doesn't do anything to this stock. From my personal opinion here, if this dropped enough, I would have no problem buying it if the yield gets back well over 2%. I don't know if that's going to happen though, because the numbers coming out of this are just too sweet. There's geopolitical risk, obviously, and Biden stepped up and said, hey, if China invades Taiwan, we're going to retaliate. They're going to protect Taiwan. This company is too much of a security risk globally. They're continuing to invest in the U.S. and that massive facility, the largest manufacturing facility investment I think ever made from a foreign entity in the U.S. $40 billion investment. It's kind of crazy. I love this company. It's touched a place in my heart. I didn't buy it because Buffett bought it. I said that earlier on, that Buffett doesn't really dictate my decisions, or I wouldn't have made as much money as I've done in my portfolio buying more speculative investments. But I really don't see this as much of a speculative investment. It kind of comes with the same third-party risk that you might see with something like your Alibabas, your Tencents. But I think this one's actually safer than those companies. But that's just my personal opinion, and I'll pass that opinion off to you. I'd love to know what you think in that comment section below. Consider joining me on Patreon if you want to continue these conversations. Talk with me directly in that chat group. But otherwise, as always, I look forward to catching you in the next one.